Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about a really important drama that was latent or part of the unsealing of the explosive brief from Jack Smith yesterday. And it's a story that I think most everybody has missed. The whole game of Donald Trump here, or three quarters of it, as I wrote in an op-ed, was to try to string things out until November 5th so that all this material wouldn't come into the public eye before the election. And he's been successful for like a year out of a combination of luck and some good lawyering, and especially the U.S. Supreme Court's just holding it up all this time. So it was kind of head spinning that the brief was just suddenly released yesterday by Judge Chutkan. And it seems to me that it was a combination of Chutkan's acting quickly, not improperly so, and somebody in Trump land, I think, fallen asleep at the switch. It just had to be from the second that the redaction litigation is initiated, where Trump is saying in 6 different ways, legally illegit, but 6 different ways, and he hopes to bring it up to the Supreme Court to expand on their already expansive immunity principle. Don't release this. It is exactly what he has said. Now, since it's been released, election interference is going to make me look bad, and indeed it does. So giving it any kind of thought, it had to be that the lawyers for Trump were ready to get the likely adverse determination from Chutkan based on the law. The law about sealing was this 6-part test from the D.C. Circuit, and there's a presumption of unsealing things and the like, and they had to be ready to argue all the way up, including with their friends in the U.S. Supreme Court, that there's an additional principle derived from the immunity principle that should keep everything under wraps, lest the president be exposed to opprobrium, as the Supreme Court put it, or lest the confidentiality of his discussions, for which he's immune, be compromised, because you want, this would be the argument he would make to the Supreme Court, to have his advisors talking to him with not only knowing they won't get indicted criminally, but the material won't see the light of day. That was the argument you had to expect him to make. And the important point was not would he win that argument, but could he use that argument to keep the litigation going until after November 5th. That had to mean for any lawyer who thought about it for a second, especially the Trump lawyers whose specialty is delaying things, that as soon as Chutkan rules, they go right away to the Court of Appeals to request a stay. On what basis? Maybe not so strong. They seek a mandamus to not have her unseal it because of this principle that really isn't in law, but they hope the law will be extended to encompass. And the court above gives them a stay to consider the stay. That's just standard. And then maybe they reject it. They try the same for the court as a whole, rehearing en banc, and then they go to the Supreme Court, where, among other things, they can hope that even if the court as a whole rejects the claim, one among their, most supportive justices, Gorsuch, Alito, or Thomas, will write something saying, I would grant the stay, and that could take a couple days. Anyway, the whole game at that point was keeping the material under wraps. And what happened instead was Chutkan issues an order, and she goes through it and says, I agree with the United States about what should be redacted. The arguments by Trump just don't accord with the law. And then there's all these stray things that he says again and again that she really is very dismissive of. And then comes to the end. The conclusion is, here's what'll be redacted. Here's what won't. And there's no request for a stay in front of her. And she decides to just unseal it immediately. And so the impact is the really huge impact, given what's been going on for the last year, given that we are in October, about 4 weeks from the election, that now it's made public. Whereas with any kind of forethought that you had to imagine they would give, the Court of Appeals is in the same building as the district court. They're ready on the first floor where the district court is to, standing by the elevator, pushing the button, going right up to the Court of Appeals and making the motion for an emergency stay and mandamus, whatever. Would there have been solid law for a stay or a mandamus? Maybe not. But the real question was, could the request for it to a panel of the D.C. Circuit, then the whole D.C. Circuit, and then especially the U.S. Supreme Court brought him over the line of November 5th. And certainly there was a real shot there, and that was the ball to keep their eye on. And I just think they didn't have their eye on the ball when they really, really needed to. And boom, now the public knows all the strongest evidence that Jack Smith wants to present at trial. It's near the election. It's awkwardly just after a presidential debate where his running mate says, refuses to say Trump lost and makes this really insulting claim. Well, we did have a peaceful transfer of power on January 20th. So it really, I think, is released with the possibility of maximum impact. And it's something that there were certainly steps they could have taken that might have succeeded, and they didn't. I think that's a really interesting part of the story, and as best I can tell, as of now, an untold one. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.